He built it to save soldiers. He named it after himself. The crates reached the dock the morning the armistice was signed. No army, no buyers. That was the bad luck version. The real version is harder. By 1940, when General John Thompson died, his gun had a name in every American city that feared it: Tommy Gun. The distance between those two facts was the argument he never won. The morning the armistice was signed, the crates sat on the dock in silence. According to accounts from that period, Thompson said it simply: "It looks like we missed the boat." He had spent 2 years building a weapon to end a war. The war ended without it. But that was only the first problem. Thompson was West Point class of 1882, a career Army Ordnance officer who helped standardize the M1903 Springfield rifle and sat on the board that approved the M1911 pistol. He built Auto Ordnance Corporation in 1916 with Wall Street money behind him. Putting his name on the gun was not branding. It was a moral declaration. By 1921, Colt was manufacturing the Model 1921 at over $200, roughly what a decent used car cost. Auto Ordnance had ordered 15,000 guns with no confirmed buyers. Their advertisements showed a rancher defending his property. The tagline read, "The most effective portable firearm in existence." The first government contract came from the United States Postal Inspection Service, not the Army, the Post Office. The ranchers weren't buying. The lawmen were buying slowly. Someone else was paying full price and never once negotiating. Prohibition had begun in January 1920, and Prohibition generated cash, untaxed, illegal, and enormous. The men running Chicago's bootlegging operations were not short of $200. The Thompson was legal to purchase over the counter, no questions asked. On September 25, 1925, a Chicago gang leader named Edward Spike O'Donnell became the first documented target of a Thompson attack after the gun entered civilian circulation. He survived. The reputation forming around the weapon did not slow down. The company had a motto. The customers had a different use. If this is the kind of history you come here for, take a second to like the video and subscribe, because the worst part of this story is still ahead. What Thompson put in writing before he died changes what you think about every gun his company ever sold. Through the 1920s, auto ordnance was repeatedly near collapse. Law enforcement contracts were thin. The Marines had used Thompsons in Nicaragua and Haiti, actual military use at last, but not in the volume that moved a ledger. A few hundred had shipped to Ireland during the War of Independence and the Civil War that followed. The company needed every sale. There was no written policy about who could walk into a dealer and put $200 on the counter in cash. There was no such policy because a policy would have required formally acknowledging what the numbers already showed. The newspapers were building their own kind of accounting. The names people gave the gun were not coming from the manufacturer. Chicago typewriter, Chicago piano, Tommy gun. These were built from the street up, from press coverage, from early gangster films, from the speed at which a front-page photograph defines a weapon more permanently than any advertisement can. Thompson actually trademarked Tommy gun in an effort to protect the name. A later production run by Savage Arms stamped it directly on the receiver, as if putting the nameplate back in place. But the meaning of the name had already been claimed by a city he never intended to arm. On the morning of February 14, 1929, 4 men entered a garage at 2122 North Clark Street in Chicago's Lincoln Park neighborhood. 2 wore police uniforms. 7 men were told to face the wall. Approximately 70 rounds were fired from 2 Thompsons. 6 died immediately. One man, Frank Gusenberg, was still breathing when real police arrived. Asked who had shot him, Gusenberg said, "Nobody shot me." He died 3 hours later. The massacre ran on front pages from one end of the country to the other. Within weeks, the name Thompson carried a meaning in American households that no advertisement had put there. General Thompson said nothing publicly. He didn't need to. The guns were recovered 10 months later. In December 1929, a Capone associate named Fred Burke drove drunk into another car in St. Joseph, Michigan. When a patrolman intervened, Burke shot him. Police raided Burke's house and found the 2 Thompsons, 9 ammunition drums, and roughly 5,000 rounds. A ballistics expert named Calvin Goddard confirmed they were the Valentine's Day weapons. The documentation was clean. The implication was permanent. Here is the part that rarely gets placed beside the rest. The Thompson was now the most feared firearm in America. The United States Army had still not placed a serious order. They bought a small quantity in 1932. Britain had seen the gun demonstrated. The Birmingham Small Arms Company had produced Thompsons under license for European sale, with successful demonstrations in the United Kingdom, France, and Belgium. No orders came. The reason given was not performance. It was the company the gun kept in American newspapers. On the surface, the Thompson had a market problem. Underneath, it had a reputation that no firing range could fix. The National Firearms Act was signed by President Roosevelt on June 26, 1934. It placed a $200 tax on the transfer of automatic weapons. $200, the exact original retail price of a Thompson. The weapon that could not find buyers at $200 in 1921 now required a $200 federal tax just to transfer legally. Civilian ownership was effectively finished. John Dillinger had posed for photographs with a Thompson that same year, and those images had appeared in the same newspapers the men drafting the legislation read. The political argument for the law was built in substantial part from the documented record of crimes committed with a gun bearing Thompson's name. Thompson was in his late 70s by then. Auto Ordnance, the company he had built with Thomas Fortune Ryan's money in 1916, had gone bankrupt and been sold in 1939. Before Thompson died on June 21, 1940, he reportedly left behind a written statement that multiple accounts have preserved in similar form. According to those accounts, he wrote that he had given his valedictory to arms, that he wanted now to pay more attention to saving human life than destroying it. And then the line that carries the most weight. It had worried him, he wrote, that the gun had been stolen by evil men and used for purposes outside his motto, on the side of law and order. The word stolen is telling. It is the word a man uses when he cannot accept that something was sold. The Thompsons used on Valentine's Day were purchased legally at full retail price from a company that needed every sale it could get. There was no theft in the documented record. There was only a man near the end of his life searching for language to keep his intentions separate from the market's verdict. He never saw the vindication. France had placed an order for 3,000 Thompsons in 1939. Britain followed. In 1940, the United States Army ordered over 20,000. Thompson died in June of that year. Over the course of World War II, more than 1.5 million Thompsons were produced. They went to every theater. Many veterans considered it the finest weapon they carried. The Korean War, early Vietnam. A gun that could not find a serious military buyer through the entire 1920s became exactly what it had been designed to be. The army he built it for finally had it. The man who built it for them was already in the ground. The $200 National Firearms Act tax stamp has never been raised. It remains $200 today. An original transferable Thompson now sells for $20,000 or more. Its value built from what happened on North Clark Street and from the scarcity the law his gun helped create made permanent. Carr Arms acquired auto ordnance in 1999 and went back to the 1919 engineering drawings to produce semi-automatic civilian reproductions. The name is still on the receiver. Somewhere, there is a gun counter with one of those reproductions under glass. A younger man picks it up and says it looks like something from a film. The older man behind the counter tells him it was in every war from 1940 to Vietnam. Neither mentions the garage. Neither mentions a general who died the year the real orders arrived. Thompson called it the Annihilator before he called it anything else. The name he worried about most was the one he put on it last, his own. Leave a comment and subscribe if you haven't. And tell me which side of this argument you come down on.